What do you do as a tourist when you're traveling around Japan and you receive a tsunami alert? And you're on a train and the sea is next to you. Well, that's exactly what happened to me yesterday. And I'm going to give you the reality of what the tsunami warning was like on the ground and how I reacted, how people reacted around me, and maybe some tips for what you should do if that ever happens to you. Keep on watching. So I was actually riding the Limited Express train from Kikatsura, which is where that famous waterfall with the pagoda is. Very beautiful location and area, to Wakayama City. The train takes about 3 hours, more or less, and I was about halfway through my journey when the alarm started to go off on my phone and on everybody's phone. I was doing some work, I was like, what's going on? And it was also going off on the actual train PA system. Now, to be totally honest, I had no idea what was happening at first. I thought that it might have been an earthquake warning. I've never actually experienced a tsunami warning before an earthquake warning, so that was a first for me. My first reaction was, what on earth is that sound? Why is it playing everywhere? It's sort of dawned on me that it might be an earthquake warning. I never expected it to be a tsunami alert. I've never actually experienced a tsunami alert like that before. The lady that was sitting across the aisle from me, she sort of panicked a little bit. She looked at me and she said, "Tsunami? Tsunami?" And that's when I sort of worried a little bit. However, I did look around the train and everybody else seemed to be quite calm, but this lady was just a little bit more panicky. And like I always say, always react according to what the locals are doing. When I sort of clocked in what was going on, the very first thing that I did and the way that I reacted was getting my laptop. I was currently sitting down doing some work on the laptop, put it away in my bag, and I grabbed some water that I had, put that away, and I made sure that I had my passport, because I figured, you know, if anything is to happen, I need my passport for identification, I need some water, and my laptop. I don't know why. Obviously, it's not the most important thing, but that's the way that I reacted, guys. One of the things that I noticed was actually Japanese people receiving and making calls on the train, which is not normal, because if anybody knows, you know, in Japan, you don't call or receive calls when you're on the train. But the initial first 5 minutes or so, people were actually receiving calls at their seats, you know, probably checking on family members or checking what was going on, receiving phone calls, etc., which is totally understandable. I have an app called Yurekuro Call installed on my phone, which is an early earthquake detection app, which was sending me the notifications with a tsunami alert. But apart from that, I was also receiving some notifications from the government emergency broadcast sort of system on my phone. That's when I started to try to investigate what was going on. Thankfully, I was able to go into the app and check on the map. Initially, it was a green alert or a yellow alert, which meant not like a low risk. Then about half an hour later, that was actually escalated to an orange alert. And that's when I started getting a little bit worried, because I was actually, the train was traveling next to the sea. I was looking to the left and I could see the sea, and I was listening to the emergency broadcast going off on the train at the same time. I was looking at the people next to me, sort of a little bit of panic. They, by this point, had chilled a little bit, and therefore I was feeling a little bit more confident. There were also some announcements in English that went a little bit like, there's been a tsunami alert, the train might stop, services might be cancelled or suspended, something along those lines, repeated in English, in Japanese, and in Chinese, I believe. By this point, I looked at Google Maps, I looked at my train route, I'd investigated like where I was going, and I was fairly confident that I was starting to, we were going in the direction opposite, away from the ocean. However, the alarms simply didn't stop. They were going off every, maybe 10 minutes, every 7-8 minutes or so, the same like tsunami alert alarm. It did stop for a little while, but then when I actually got to Wakayama, where I was meeting a friend, things changed a little bit. So all I can really say is that I'm really happy that I had an internet connection. Just to stay updated and contact my friend, make arrangements for where we were going to meet up, and in the event of a big emergency happening, you know, knowing what was going on. I use Sakura Mobile. You can too. All the information will be in the description or in the QR code that I will leave on this video. It's a great way to support the video, plus getting something that's really useful for all viewers that are going to be traveling to Japan. I was meeting my friend Cheney, and she had all of these activities planned for me that were mostly next to the seaside, but obviously plans had to change. And this is a good reminder that sometimes when you're traveling, plans do change, and it's okay to change your plans. So my friend Cheney, you should check her out, by the way, on YouTube. I'll leave all the information. She picked me up from my hotel where I was staying. I left my luggage, and by this point things were rather calm. You know, we sort of said, oh my goodness, what a morning it's been, you know, with all the tsunami alerts. We spoke about it. She mentioned that the area where we were at was safe because we were, you know, above a certain amount of meters, and that we were fine. And she also mentioned there's no way we're going to go anywhere near the ocean, which I was like totally fine with. So we had to come up with a backup plan. We had to come up with something to do. So we headed for a coffee store run by this awesome Australian dude to discuss what we were going to do, what our plans were going to be. I think it was when we parked, when the first street alarms started to sound. To be honest, I was a little bit freaked out, trying to keep my, you know, like cool, meeting somebody new. I didn't want to be that guy who panicked. I think we were both sort of feeling similar, I'm guessing. The alarm was sounding, it was all the time sounding in Japanese over and over and over again. It would stop for a few minutes and then it would restart. And this was actually being played across the whole city. Well, I'm guessing it was the whole city. Get to higher ground, get to higher ground. Even whilst we were having coffee, the alarms kept on coming, the tsunami warnings kept on coming, and the street sirens and announcements could be heard from inside the coffee store. The combination of both was a little bit unsettling, but I knew that we were safe. I knew that we were far from the sea. And I knew that Cheney knew what she was doing, and I had my trust completely in her by this point. So we discussed our plans and we decided, let's move away from the ocean. Let's not go anywhere near the ocean, and let's not risk it. So we decided to go for a drive instead and check out the Cat Master at the Wakayama Cat station, which is pretty cool. Have some pizza and just get to know each other a little bit, you know, hang out, have a little bit of fun that way and not stress. Try to forget about what was going on. Now, it's interesting to note that other locations didn't have these sirens, they didn't have these alarms. We were very close to the ocean. We were coastline based, so it's understandable why Wakayama specifically was taking this so seriously. Some of my friends that live in Tokyo, they had no alarm, no real worry, no real fear. I spoke to one of my friends. She said, "Oh, you know, like nothing's really happened." One of my friends who was in Osaka, I also asked them, you know, if they had received any emergency alarms, and they said that they hadn't really heard anything, that it wasn't such a big deal in Osaka. So it's also important to note that this tsunami alert really did hit mostly the coastal areas of Japan. My understanding is that anywhere that wouldn't be affected by a tsunami obviously would not actually get the alarms or the sirens or the announcements. Regardless, when you are in Japan, your best thing is to be prepared, to be aware of your surroundings, you know, check out vacation spots, familiarize yourself with where you might have to, in the event of a real tsunami hitting, have to escape to. And when you're staying in a hotel, then do the same. Familiarize yourself with the hotel evacuation routes, where to go, etc. Now, it's most likely that the worst is over. After all, it was like an 8.8 or 8.7 magnitude earthquake that happened in Russia. However, it's incredible how much warning Japan actually gave its citizens. The tsunami would have hit 2 or 3 hours after the first initial warning, and that warning was all the time changing, you know, elevated or downgraded depending on the information. We are living in a digital age. The 2011 earthquake and tsunami has actually taught the Japanese a lot. It's taught the government a lot, and it's also taught Japanese people to take this much more seriously. This age of fast communication, phone calls, the internet, and information reaching you faster than ever before is a win when it comes to being prepared for hazards like earthquakes and especially tsunamis. Now, we're talking about a country that is living with the scars of the tragedy of 2011 and a reminder that comes with every single earthquake and tsunami warning. This time, thankfully, it was only a warning and nothing really happened. There were some smaller tsunami waves that hit some coastal areas, but nothing that was too concerning. Japan continues to live in the shadow of a real emergency occurring in the future and is trying its best to be ready. The question is, are you ready as a tourist if you come to Japan? Familiarize yourself with your surroundings, follow instructions, and follow what the locals do. On that note, stay positive, be happy, Gaijin, and if you found this video to be useful and interesting, please subscribe and stay safe. Till next time, bye.